Hi, everyone. It's Andy Lombard. I'm Executive Vice President of Innovation and Venture Development for the Arizona Commerce Authority. Welcome to our first Small Business Bootcamp and Resource Collective meeting. We're going to get started in a few minutes here, if you just be patient. There is areas for Q&A, so if you have some questions, please do not hesitate to start filling that up for us. We'll get kicked off in a couple of moments here. Thank you. Hi, again, it's Andy Lombard, Executive Vice President of the ACA. Welcome to our Small Business Bootcamp. We're going to be holding these daily. We have a lot of people joining, so we're going to give a couple of more minutes for everyone to log in and join. There is a hand raise function. If you can look at the bottom of your Zoom screen, there's also a Q&A section. You can ask any questions that you like, and we'll try to get to those questions today. If we don't, we will log those questions and try to get questions out on our microsite for this as well. All of these will be recorded. We will be having these sessions for you to view afterwards. In addition, we will be sharing this, this deck and we'll be sharing all information that's provided in these bootcamp sessions. If you just give us a couple more minutes, we'll wait for a few more attendees to join and then we will get started. Thank you. I see questions starting to roll in. Thank you, Randy, for that question, Randy Graff. We will get an answer to that for you. All right. As attendees start to roll in, again, my name is Andy Lombard, Executive Vice President of the Arizona Commerce Authority. We've got a great bootcamp session for you today. We are going to be holding these bootcamp sessions daily at 9 a.m., so set your calendar accordingly. We will be publishing out new content information for next week. We'll go over the format a little bit quickly here in the beginning, and then we'll get started. Thanks. All right, it's a few minutes after, and I know that there's a lot more attendees that are planning to join us. We have a really good group today, so thank you again. This is Andy Lombard, Executive Vice President at the Arizona Commerce Authority. Today I'm joined by Kimber Lanning from Local First Arizona and Tom Fulcher, who's been very gracious to share his expertise on the PPP program, EIDL programs. And then we're also going to hear from Robert Theobald, who is our ACA small business representative and who's doing just a tireless job in helping all of our small businesses. Before I begin, I want to thank all of our partners who have really come to the table and will continue to grow this list. I would especially like to highlight Local First Arizona and the Local First Foundation Rural Development Council. Kimber Lanning has been doing such a tireless job of helping small businesses for so long, and I know she's been incredibly busy over the last several weeks. I've had the opportunity to work with Kimber significantly over the last few days, and just fantastic. So I'd like to turn it over, Kimber, if you want to give us a little bit of a rundown on what you're working on in Local First Arizona, the Rural Development Council. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you, Andy. Thanks everybody for joining us this morning. So a couple of quick updates. We have to date distributed about $540,000 in micro funding to our smallest businesses, focusing on those that are most vulnerable with under 3 employees. We are continuing to make our way through the vast number of applicants that we have. So thanks for your patience. Do know that we are continuing to raise funds so that we can distribute that as quickly as possible. And then Local First has been working to aggregate the talent amongst our network. So whether it's retired CPAs, legal experts, or others, we're offering one-on-one consulting that really accentuates the webinars and information that the ACA has been coordinating. And I'd really like to thank the team at the ACA for working so hard to get this launched. And then the other thing that I just wanted to mention is the Rural Development Council. It is important to note that we are working across the state. And so for those of you that are tuned in that have very rural specific issues or challenges, please don't hesitate to reach out to us if we can be helpful. So we're thrilled to be a part of this fantastic team here working across the state. And I'll hand it back to you, Andy, and thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much, Kimber. And again, fantastic work. Thank you for your leadership and all the work that you guys are doing. It's amazing. I'd also like to thank Sandra Watson. This is a brainchild of hers. She and I spoke less than a week ago on this concept, and we thought we could pull it off. I want to also make sure that I thank all of the other partners that are not listed on this list right now that are on the phone. We are catching up. So please do not hesitate to send us your information and your logos. We'll get them up there. And again, this is a very wide, statewide joint community effort. I want to go through a little bit about what our concept is here very quickly, and then jump right into the PPP discussion and try to answer some of the questions that you may have. The Bootcamp is designed for businesses of 20 employees and less. Anyone can join this, but we're really targeting it for 20 employees and less. Again, it's a statewide initiative, really supported by our community partners. So we are doing a call to action. If you have content and information for small businesses, this is going to be a boot camp that we're going to run daily. We are putting it at 6 weeks at this point, but we will encourage and look forward to possibly even extending it if we need to or want to. The resource collective concept is an idea that really gets all of the resources available to you. We can have, we're putting together a microsite for this. This presentation, along with the recording of this presentation and all of our information, will be posted up there. We'll be providing you a lot more information as we move along with that as well. So the sessions this week we've defined, our thought process on this is to have 3 new session topics a week. On Thursdays and Fridays, we'll have what's called open office hours. This is open Q&A. This is available to anyone to join. We'll have group Q&A. We'll also work down the road at providing specific vertical oriented for various industries as well for Q&A. Right now, we're going to talk about PPP and EIDL. Tomorrow, sources of quick cash. We'll review the EIDL program. Of course, review any questions that anyone has on PPP or applications. On Wednesday, it's engaging with and considering engaging with your banks and considering alternative funding sources. So with that, again, I want to remind everybody you have a hand raise function at the bottom of your screen. So go ahead and raise your hands. We'll try to get to questions as much as we can. In addition, there's a written Q&A. All of our panelists can see that. So we'll start to pick through some of those questions as well. Anything that's not answered, we'll have logs of, and we'll try to get the answers out to you as soon as we can. All right, well, we have a lot of information to share. This is critical information, and we do not want to hesitate to get to it. Without further ado, I'm going to hand it off to Tom Fulcher, who has really been our expert on this topic of PPP and other programs. So without further ado, I want to introduce Tom. Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Andy, and welcome everybody. I'm glad you can join us today. We're going to go through this information on the Paycheck Protection Program, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, and real quickly on debt relief, rather rapidly. We want to get this done in about 20 minutes, so there's plenty of time for a few more comments from the panelists, and then to address your questions. So the emerging funding programs, if we move forward and look at what's happened, we started with $349 billion on the Paycheck Protection Program. It was estimated close to $5 billion was in Arizona. The latest legislation added $321 billion, taking that total to $670. Of that 670 billion, about $60 billion was set aside for smaller depository institutions, credit unions, and community financial institutions that tend to address more underserved markets, underbanked markets. So there is additional funding set aside there. For the Paycheck, for the Paycheck Protection Program, these are loans that are for immediate cash flow for your business. They can be forgiven if you maintain your payrolls during the crisis or restore your payrolls immediately. So what this can cover as far as use of funds, it can cover rent and mortgage interest for the company, payroll, and utilities. It can also be used to cover existing interest on existing debt, but that part is not forgivable. So there are specific uses of funds, some of which are forgivable, some of which are not. And we'll go more in detail on this. But first, let's go ahead and look at eligibility. So the eligibility, big slide, lots of words, sorry about that. Think of it primarily as small business concerns with fewer than 500 employees and nonprofit and veterans organizations and tribal businesses. There are size standards that the SBA uses to determine what's a small business, what's not a small business. If someone is a small business but has more than 500 employees, but they still qualify as a small business because of their unique industry, they will also qualify. If anyone out there is a sole proprietor or an independent contractor, you do qualify as a self-employed individual. There are some affiliation rules dealing with accommodations and food services that have been waived, and there are some religious organizations, and most recently, certain farm and agricultural organizations were allowed to be part of this. So how to apply? Starting today again, going with the SBA approved lenders. Start with where you have an existing banking relationship. That's the fastest. Most banks on lenders are working with their own clients first, and many in the first round didn't even open it to new accounts. Then you can look at applying at multiple locations, but make sure you advise other lenders when you're doing that. And if you do get approved for a loan, make sure that you contact other lenders where you might have applied and advise them so you can get out of line and let somebody else in. Give back. For those that received funds but now feel they do not need or may not fit the rules, originally it was May 3rd. Now those can be returned by May 7th without consequence. So if there's anyone out there in that setting. New funding, existing applications were left in queue, and those new funding applications will move forward. And of course, you can go back to those lenders and new lenders. There's a lot of fintech, financial technology lenders that have been added, people like Bluevine and Square and Cabbage. And as I said earlier, there's the $60 billion set aside. So if we look at the terms, this is a loan that's up to $10 million. The interest rate on the loan is 1%. There's a lot of misinformation about that, but it is 1%. The term is 2 years. The first payment can be deferred for 6 months. However, during that time, interest does accrue. There's no prepayment penalty. There are no fees. There's no collateral required, and there is no personal guarantee. This is 100% guaranteed by the SBA to the banks. So very, very attractive terms. Looking ahead, we can look at some of the program features. Now, this is somewhat of a generalization. You know, loans can be equivalent to 250% of the borrower's average monthly payroll cost. And we have, you know, shown here a couple ways you might look at that. If you're a non-seasonal employer, if you're a new employer, if you're a seasonal employer, different ways to look at it. What's important to think about is what is payroll? So payroll is salaries, wages, tips, commissions, you know, all these things add into payroll. Another thing to keep in mind, there's a salary cap of $100,000 per individual employee. That is not averaged. If you have 5 employees, 4 of them make $60,000 and 1 makes 120, those 4 count as 60, the 5th counts as 100. So that is not an average number. On top of that, though, is added group health insurance, state and local taxes, and pension contributions. So even at the 100, they can add on top of that those 3 elements. If you are a self-employed individual, the SBA, I just got it this morning, came up with new guidelines for self-employed and sole proprietors. In general, though, for self-employed, net earnings is part of your base for calculations because many self-employed individuals may not be paying themselves a full salary. So if we can go ahead and move ahead to the eligible payroll costs. I mentioned these already. So it's the sum of payments of compensation is included for sole proprietors and self-employed. It also includes net earnings, plus, as I said, retirement, group health, state and local taxes. What's not included any individual compensation over $100,000 on salary, a variety of other taxes, including federal taxes. Any compensation to an employee whose principal place of residence is outside of the U.S. And there is some further clarification that in the IRS, in the SBA rules, you can check with them on that. Qualified sick leave or qualified family leave. Rules vary for individuals from this who are filing their IRS Schedule C. And again, that 100,000 is still in place on this. So don't expect you to remember all of that, but that's the core of it. So evaluating your eligibility. You have to have been in operation before February 15th and had employees they paid salaries and payroll taxes or paid into independent contractors. Although the independent contractor is not included in your calculation, that's part of it. Good faith certification. The uncertainty of economic conditions make loan requests necessary to support ongoing operations. You'll use the loan proceeds to retain workers and maintain payroll for the uses indicated, and that the borrower will not receive a loan duplicative, so no double dipping for the amounts applied for here. So the forgiveness, which is our next slide. So a borrower can be eligible for loan forgiveness equal to the amount of the borrower spent on these items during the 8-week period. The 8-week period starts with the dispersal of proceeds. When you get the money is when 8 weeks starts. So you do need to be prepared for tracking. So the payroll cost defined as same in the base calculation. Mortgage or interest or rent, payment on utilities, and if you have tipped employees or commission base, those are all part of that payroll. So make sure to either look at the SBA interim final rules for details, contact someone for help, but make sure you do understand that. What's most important, as I said, is forgiveness begins on the date of dispersal of funds to the borrower. So you do need to start tracking immediately when you get those funds. And that may mean changing the way you do things for some self-employed individuals who perhaps haven't paid themselves a salary. Maybe it makes sense to pay yourself a salary at this point. So the other thing, biggest thing on eligible loan forgiveness on our next slide shows is the 75% rule. At least 75% of your spending must be on what is determined to be or defined to be payroll. The 25% can be those other items that can be forgiven. That includes the mortgage, interest, rent, and utilities. But at least 75% must be on payroll. So looking at this, and this chart, I'm not going to try to go through this entire chart for you. This will be available after the presentation. But in essence, what this says is same jobs, same salaries. That's what they're looking to do. Now, when you calculate and you use the number of jobs, it's every job. There's no FTE or anything like that. It's part-time, every job, part-time and full-time, every job counts as a job. If you make changes during the forgiveness period, then new rules kick in where some FTE calculations are going to be used. So just be aware of that. If you do make changes, or if you wait 4 weeks to bring your employees back, changes will happen and your forgiveness will be reduced. So also looking forward at reducing the 75% usage rule if it's not used properly. If you have duplicate usage, if you have another loan that you're using for the same reasons, for example, the EIDL loan, and the EIDL advance. If you receive an EIDL advance, the amount of that advance does decrease the maximum forgivable amount of your PPP. You got 10,000, reduces it by 10. You got 1,000, reduces it by 1, etc. Also, if you utilize the PPP loan, you may lose eligibility for other HR-related tax credits. That's a topic I'm sure we'll cover in another small business boot camp. So calculating your loan, We've given you basics. ACA on our website has a Paycheck Protection Program loan forgiveness calculator and a loan calculator. So I encourage you to look there, look at the application, and again, seek help in preparing this. We also have a small list of approved lenders here from the SBA, and it shows who's even accepting new clients and has regular lenders, fintech, and others. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the economic injury disaster loan. So the loan for eligibility, if your small business is less than 500 employees, you've suffered substantial economic injury, or such as you're unable to meet the obligations to pay ordinary and necessary operating expenses. This also applies to certain nonprofits. Keep in mind that this loan is complementary to the PPP loan, not to be used for the same purposes. If we move on, you see businesses with fewer than 500 employees, co-ops, tribal businesses, and others with fewer than 500, sole proprietors, independent contractors, and most private nonprofits. So that's who can apply. They have to have been in business by the 31st of January. So as far as the new funding, I saw one of these questions come in already. Yes, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program did receive additional funding, $60 billion. $50 billion of that was for the standard loan. $10 billion of that was for advances. So that does double the amount of money that's available for the advances. So let's look at the use of funds. Help meet the capital needs caused by COVID-19 responses, pay financial obligations and operating costs, fixed debts, extraordinary expenses. This is not a tool to replace lost profits or lost sales. This is about covering losses. So when you go through the process, one of the things you'll project is 6 months of expenses. You'll pick a 6-month period, project those expenses, look at sales, and they'll do some calculations there. So it is a 6-month of losses program. And just as a reminder, there's no double dipping. It can augment the Paycheck Protection Program, but you shouldn't be using it at the same period of time for the same expenses. So let's take a look at the terms. The maximum amount is a $2 million loan. It's a rate of 3.75% for businesses, 2.75% for nonprofits, has a 30-year term. Their payments can be deferred for 1 year, interest does accrue. Up to $200,000 can be approved without a personal guarantee, and collateral is sought above $25,000, but they've indicated no collateral will be sought until $500,000. So what if you don't have collateral? Apply anyway and go through the process. Not having collateral is not a stop on being able to get this loan. So where do you go to get started? And we checked this morning right before we launched, and we'll check again right after. If we look at this next slide, we'll provide you the link to go there. And this is where you go. It should open today. It is a simple process. 4 or 5 minutes will all it take to fill this out. And there's a box on there. Check that box. It says, do you want to be considered for an advance? Then you wait. The advance will be paid first directly to your bank account. While you're waiting, this is just my recommendation, is a Form 2202. That's the schedule of liabilities. Form 1368 is called additional filing requirements, a 2-pager. It talks about your sales and your forecast expenses. Some additional forms. You might go ahead and have those ready for when you are contacted by a case manager. So keep in mind also, the advance part of this loan is $1,000 per employee up to $10,000. That advance is a no repayment loan. So it's similar to a grant. You get the money, there's no paperwork, you're done. And you don't have to do anything with the advance part of that loan. So we can look forward where you might find some help. There are some small business development centers. Their website link is there. They're all over the state. The Small Business Ombudsman, he's with us today. And the SBA Disaster Customer Service Center phone number. It's great places for help. One last topic I wanted to touch on is the SBA Debt Relief Program. So the Debt Relief Program, if you have a 7A, 504, and certain microloans, the SBA will pay 6 months of principal and interest for you on those loans. Now it is, I don't know if my air quotes will show up, automatic, but the SBA has been very clear in saying make sure you check with your banks. Don't assume a payment's being made and miss a payment and get yourself in trouble. So do check with your bank if you have those. If you have a deferred loan currently, that's okay. It'll kick in after deferral, or you can delay the deferral. Also importantly, this is on loans that are taken out through September 27th. Finally, EIDL application opens today. Banks are accepting applications and lenders and have been. So we wish you the best of luck, and I'll turn it back to Andy.
Okay, Tom, let's do some Q&A if we could. I think you have the same list up here. We want to try to rapid fire as many as we can, and then we'll go into a couple more topics before we close.
Sure. Someone asked if the EIDL was funded. As I showed, it is funded. We're just waiting for it to open. James asked about independent contractors applying for the program. Is year-to-date profit and loss statement needed for January to current or Schedule C? It just depends how you file taxes. Self-employed is a kind of a muddy area, but yes, if you were Schedule C, they'll look for that. If you haven't filed in 2019, you 2018. I've also seen lenders accept QuickBooks income statements along with 941s and things like that. So yes, Bank of America asked someone about their 940 and 43. Sole proprietor, why are they asking about these forms? Well, you need to go back to the bank and explain to them that you are a sole proprietor and don't file such forms. So let's see. Janine asked, the CARES Act for SBA business reorganization. Federal judge issued a restraining order. I will have to refer you to the SBA on that one, Janine. I don't know anything about this restraining order on debtors, so.
Why don't we take a look at that one and park it for now?
Yep.
Janine will try to do some research on that.
We have two banks from Elizabeth working on our loan application. Don't know who will be first, Bank of West and Washington Federal. Do I need to cancel one of those applications? It's difficult. The rules have one set of statements. I know what the lenders are saying. They are encouraging people to go ahead and apply somewhere else if there's doubt. What I would say is, as soon as you know it's going forward, definitely contact the other bank and cancel that application. You want to make sure that there is room for other people to apply. Thomas, what if your business is considered an essential service? You've been able to keep your employees working. Can we use the PPP to pay wages now that will be later forgiven? Well, you don't have to lay off your employees. So if you can document economic injury and uncertainty, you can apply for these loans. If you have further questions, I would refer you to the SBA on that one. Moving forward, Dirk has asked, most banks are not able to handle the volume and are not taking new apps. So the SBA applications or lender list that was shown in the presentation does show those that are accepting new applications. A lot of the fintechs are accepting applications as well. Restore payroll after crisis. Does that mean once we're allowed to open? It means you need to restore payroll during an 8-week period after you receive funds. And that can be difficult for people. I know people have said, well, what if I'm still in trouble after that 8 weeks? I don't have a clear answer for that. We don't know if there'll be additional funding or not. So let's move down a bit. Sorry, long question here.
There's one question while you're reading that, Tom. We are going to be providing a link for this recorded conversation as well. We'll be providing the PowerPoint as well. And that will be up on our site. We'll send out links to those participants as we publish that today.
Thank you, Andy. So we have a long question about someone who did lay off employees, and they would like to bring them back because now they've received their EIDL and Paycheck Protection Program monies. But some of the issues now some employees now have issues with childcare. So Andy, I assume we're going to have a future conversation on the Family First Coronavirus Response Act and Emergency Family Medical Leave Act, and that will cover those topics. You do get into some legal things there, so I think we'll have to leave that for a future time. Sole proprietors who started out and don't have an earnings base yet, you have to have been in business by February 15th. Unfortunately, if you look at the way calculations are done, if you don't have, Andy, do you want to answer that question?
Hey, Tom, I'll jump in. This is Robert. I posted in the chat a link to the Department of Treasury's website and it's home.treasury.gov, and they have a great website with links. And under the borrowers piece, there's a how to calculate the loan, and it gets into detail for independent contractors and sole proprietors how to calculate your loans based on the different scenarios. So I posted that link in the chat bar to everyone. So
Thank you, Robert.
Perfect. Yeah, that's been getting updated regularly because, as I said, there are a lot of different definitions of sole proprietors, especially if you are Schedule C. I think we've answered the startup question. Can you include? Yes, the rules do say that group health care premiums are to be added, and that you can include those as part of the payroll on top of the salary. Will Paycheck Protection Program, if approved, be reduced by the amount of the EIDL grant? So by grant, I assume you mean the advance. So it will not be reduced. The amount of forgiveness available will be reduced. So if you had 100,000 that could be forgiven, your cap is going to be 90,000 forgiven. Remember, if you end up with money available after your forgiveness, it is a 1% loan. And Rob, all right, I will keep going on these till Andy says we're out of time.
Yeah, 1 second, Tom. Robert, while we're going, could you please publish the link for the banks to this group so that they can have that right away?
yes.
Thank you.
Okay, EIDL is a loan. The EIDL advance is not repayable. EIDL loans are repayable. Yes, you do have to repay those. Someone use credit cards for insurance, utilities, etc. Yeah, it doesn't matter how you paid for them as long as you can document you paid for them. Those are part of the Paycheck Protection Program. If you not hire back all employees, well, it's not about after June 2020. If you get the PPP, the day that you get the money is when your 8 weeks starts. So the longer you take to hire back employees, the less amount of forgiveness you will be granted. And do we still have time, Andy?
Yeah, let's do a couple more, and then we'll document these and then try to do some writtens. Let me go ahead and answer which ones, and I'll try to look through as well. Thanks.
Okay. So somebody had applied with their bank, made a mistake on their application, was notified about last night. So they asked if they can reapply. I think you want to go back to your lender and ask them, because many people have had this situation, their lenders have just corrected the information without forcing a new application. New application puts you further back in line. So if your lender will work with you to correct it and leave you where you were, that would be better.
Okay. Tom, let's move on. And then what we'll try to do, let's get through the last portion of our topic today, and then we can stay on a little bit after 10 possibly, if you're available, Tom. Okay. I'm going to hand it off to Robert really quick. We're going to want to go through some mitigation risk issues.
So in mitigating your business, and good morning, everybody. I'm glad to be here. I'm Robert Theobald, the Small Business Ombudsman and Director of Small Business Services at the Arizona Commerce Authority. To help mitigate your business risk, there's a couple key points we wanted to talk about real quickly. And one, Tom has already mentioned, but contact your bank immediately. Establish that relationship if you don't have one. Find out where your current status is and know your funding needs. And then two, and we're going to work on this throughout this boot camp as well as these pieces, prepare a plan. Prepare a plan to preserve your business and to leverage the loans or the finances you have to minimize layoffs. And then another key piece is communicate with your landlord or building owner your business needs. If one of the challenges you're facing is having the funds to pay rent, then communicate with your landlord and establish that plan to do that. The executive order to limit the people being impacted from the rent, they still owe rent. You can't be evicted during this time, but that rent payment is still due at some point, and you can still face fees. So it's very important that you talk with your landlord and work through a plan with that. Another thing to do to help mitigate the risk is leverage the programs that are available to you as small businesses in Arizona. In the small business side, we have at the ACA, we can help you in navigating through the SBA programs and also working with the small business development centers, the SBDCs. We have some local banking contacts and our website keep you up to date on the latest developments. Also through the Office of Economic Opportunity, they work closely with the Arizona at Work and working on workforce as employer liaison, crosswalking employees, whether you had to lay some off and you want to help find somewhere for them to land in the interim, or you're in need of employees, your business is starting to pick up and you need employees, workforce can help with that. They also can do some consulting on some federal funding for training that's available. And then our Arizona MEP, if you're a manufacturer, they're a phenomenal resource and can help with your COVID-19 needs there. So let's just recap some things we've talked about: contacting your bank, prepare a plan, communicate with your building owner and your landlord. And then a fourth piece is keeping track of updates and business updates. Our azcommerce.com COVID-19 page is constantly being updated with the latest information. It's going to be updated with the information from this webinar, with the recording, with the links as well. So keep an eye on that. And also on that website is an opportunity to sign up for email alerts. So if you don't mind getting some emails from us, then definitely sign up and we'll send those updates out as we have them. So Andy, back over to you.
Great. This is just a note to stay informed, and this is the site that Robert was speaking about. We'll also be posting up this information on our website as well and directing you there. Just a quick recap on the sessions coming up tomorrow at 9 a.m. We'll kick it off again. We will obviously be taking a lot of questions on PPP and EIDL as those questions come through. A new topic would be quick sources of cash. We're partnering with Local First Arizona, so thank you again, Kimber, for the presentation tomorrow. We're awfully excited by that. And then also on Wednesday, we're going to be engaging with your bank. Critical item in considering alternative funding sources. At this time, I'd like to, Tom, go back both with you and Robert, if we could. Let's go continue to answer questions that have come in. There's several. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So where are we at? So Mario applied for an EIDL with a confirmation number April 3rd. Haven't heard back. Yeah, what we're told at this point, Mario, is that you're in line, stay in line. You want to make sure that your confirmation number began with a 3. That means that you applied under the new application. If it began with a 2, you didn't have the chance to check the box that you wanted the EIDL advance. But we are seeing people getting their loans in that did get the 2. If we received an EIDL grant, should we assume we will be offered a loan at some point? I wouldn't assume anything, Cameron, but you should assume that you'll be receiving additional contact from the SBA on that. Same type of question. If you referred and if you applied and didn't hear everything, if you did get a confirmation number on EIDL, just stay in line. Someone spoke with their banker on Saturday. They're processing it in the queue, applicants only. And so they want to see the ACA list of banks accepting new clients or clients with no deposit relationships established with them. That will be shared.
That has been posted, Tom, on this chat, and we'll also try to put a link to that on our site as well.
Okay. Okay. What's next? Somebody laid off a large section of part-time workers. Some of them applied for unemployment. If we get PPP and the payroll volume is still high, but the actual number of employees is less, is that okay? At that point, I will refer you to look carefully at the SBA interim final rule and FAQs on this. If you have a reduced workforce or change, the forgiveness calculations will be different. They'll use some FTE standards to look at those forgiveness calculations. So you will be impacted if not everyone's brought back in terms of forgiveness.
Yeah, and Tom, as I was reading through that as well, they do look at total head count. So part-time employees that you had before COVID-19 do impact that. So definitely, as Tom mentioned, read through that interim ruling, because you may bring back a full-timer and with the, taking the place of 2 or 3 part-timers, and that will impact your head count. So be very mindful of that piece.
Yeah, excellent point, Robert. So Linda, good for Linda. She received her funds on April 21st. She's an independent contractor and wants to know if she can pay herself wages. Linda, I would encourage you to talk to your CPA, but yes, I know a lot of people are doing just that. They might have worked on draws before, but instead they're paying themselves wages, doing taxes, paying themselves rent as opposed to a home office deduction. So a lot of people have worked strategies with their CPA to make sure that they can properly track. That's important. You need to be able to properly track your expenses during that 8-week forgiveness period. We've answered a lot of these questions already. The SBA does not accept Paycheck Protection Programs loans, but yes, they did announce, the SBA announced that they started accepting submissions from lenders at 10:30 this morning Eastern time. I know I read there were a few glitches, but they are actively processing. Is there an experienced timeline for the initial deposit on EIDL? I wish I could tell you there was a known number, but there's not. It's been anywhere from 3 to 6 weeks for those that have gotten loans. Andy, on the question from John about does drawing Social Security impact eligibility? That's one we'll have to hold. I don't know that, so we'll have to.
Yep, we'll try to follow up on that one as well. Thank you.
Okay. Can you use EIDL funds to pay? Well, EIDL funds are for your normal operating expenses. So if normal operating expenses include QuickBooks, that shouldn't be an issue. Paycheck Protection Program is different. EIDL cannot be used to expand your business. So if it's normal operating expenses, you should be okay, and that's part of the application process. A lot of people just in the I'm waiting questions. So somebody who applied for the EIDL loan, received a $1,000 advance, and now wants to apply for paycheck protection. You do not need to return that $1,000 advance. It's a no repayment loan. However, that $1,000 will be a reduction to the forgiveness amount on your Paycheck Protection Program, but you do want to notify your bank about receiving that. Your bank has nothing to do with the EIDL application, however. Andy, there's a question about 501c6. We'll have to mark for later.
Okay, thank you.
A lot of I'm in wait questions. Somebody replied for the EIDL loan for both the companies and haven't heard anything yet. I did check the advance box. I would say in that case, Lisa, if you got confirmation numbers starting with 3, we're advised that those are in the queue and you should be okay. You will want to, if you have more than one company, look into affiliation standards, affiliation rules at some point if you've got affiliation there. So I want to be careful with that. Somebody asked if they can delay accepting the Paycheck Protection Program loan. I do not believe that is possible. This is a first come, first served loan. There was a similar question before that I don't want to take it right now. If you don't accept the loan, the bank or lender will move on to others. So I don't think delaying is really an option.
Hey, Tom, one moment, please. Ronald Curtis, are you on?
Yes, I am.
Hi, Ronald. I wanted you to speak a little bit really quickly, if you could, and maybe just give some guidance to some of our small businesses on the application process would be great. And just maybe give a general overview of your organization. Thanks.
Certainly. We opened this morning at 7:30, which was Eastern time, 10:30 Eastern time when the portals were open. Within 2 or 3 minutes, the portal was completely shut down on accepting applications. I think it's probably the log jam with SBA, where we have tried and We've got a couple that are in process right now, but we've got a list of well, we're starting out with 25 we're trying to input today. But unfortunately, SBA is clogged up. The system is not working well, so we still have not successfully completed a single application. So I know that people are really excited trying to get these things done, but we are fit to be tied just trying to get these things processed and into SBA. I thought they would have fixed the program, at least to accommodate some of the problems from last round, but round two has been a very slow start. So I just wanted people to understand it doesn't help to just call, is it in, is it in, is it in, and when's my money coming? So if people can just be patient, again, we're working with a government agency, and I'm sure they're doing their best, but right now they keep crashing the system just for inputting and getting the applications accepted. So I just wanted to put that out there. It's a little slow.
Patience, yeah. Patience on once your app is in. Thank you. Appreciate that. Janine
Certainly.
Ford, I saw you had your hand raised. Go ahead and ask your question, please.
Yes, I wanted to ask quickly. We are also looking, just to mention, you've seen a couple of my questions in there that we could get feedback on later once you find out. But we are wondering, as far as anyone else that happens to be in reorganization, we are in a healthy reorganization. There are 3 companies we found around the country now that have filed in BK court an action, a restraining order as of Friday against the SBA to can do these funds for people that are in reorganization companies. So we're thinking there are other companies maybe in Arizona that could join us. We've gotten in contact with Andy Bigg's office. He says, get your bank to go to the SBA. This should go through. Well, our bank did. We get approved, and the SBA said no. So we're looking for some help from Arizona also, and some other companies that are in reorganization that may be having this problem, or some just some information on that. Forward.
Okay, yeah, as we said, we'll take that and see if we can do some investigation. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Tom, if you can maybe hit a couple more questions. We've got about 10 more minutes. That'd be great. Thank you.
Sure, and Robert, jump in as well. One important question I noticed in the chat was, do you count yourself as an employee? Answer's yes. If you're a sole proprietor or any type of self-employed situation, you have 3 employees, make sure you count yourself. You are an employee in that situation, so that's an important one. Someone asked about, can I give the lender my 2018 and 19 taxes, and they help with completing the application? No, your lender's not going to help you with completing the application. I know some of the community oriented organizations are providing a little help. My advice would be contact your local SBDC, and they'll help you with any questions that you might have to finish your application. And those are, no charge services, and they're all over the state. Someone had 3 employees at the time business was ordered to close. Some may not choose to come back to work. This is a fantastic question. This is about jobs, not individuals. You have to have the same number of jobs. So if somebody gets replaced, that still counts. It doesn't have to be the same exact individual. So yeah, we don't know when the EIDL advance application will reopen today. The SBA just told us. Trying to move forward things we haven't answered yet. So this is there's an anonymous one there. Andy, about they were holding off opening their business till April 1st, but they've been paying rents and op costs since January 1st. But we're not in business before February 15th. It's a little complicated question. I'm not sure we can address that.
Also, just while you're looking at the next questions, Robert, could you go ahead and share the PPP loan calculator, please?
Yeah, I just shared it on the chat, and it is azcommerce.com/loan-calculator. And on our AZ Commerce website, under the business resources for COVID-19, in conjunction with one of our partners, MST Solutions, they developed a loan calculator tool based on the PPP guidelines. And so you can key in key measurements for your business, key parts of your payroll, and figure out the loan amount. And then there's just a simple tool to help identify the forgivable amount as well. It's a great little reference tool to help review that information. But I just posted in the chat window the link for that.
Thanks, Robert.
Perfect. Thanks, Robert. David asked about, is marketing considered normal customer expense? I believe it is. Again, the form for that is Form 1368. It has the lovely name of additional filing information or something like that. And I'll find that link and provide that to Robert so he can distribute it, but it shows the expenses and how you categorize those.
Tom, could you just clarify this question? I think it's come up a couple of different times. The PPP is a forgivable loan. Then you mentioned the loan is repaid at 1%. Could you just clarify how that works, please?
Yes, the loan itself. So because of the calculation, if you remember, you are in essence using 10 weeks of payroll compensation to calculate the loan. And then it's forgiven for 8 weeks. So if 75% of that is there, so it just depends. Do you have mortgage, interest, rent, and utilities that will, along with group health and things like that we talked about, that will make up that 25%. So let's say you got a $100,000 loan, and your forgiveness after what you spent and taking the EIDL off the forgiveness, the EIDL advance, let's say you've been forgiven for $80,000. Now you have $20,000 that is a 1% loan. You can pay that back right away if you don't want to mess with it, or you can have it for that 2-year period. Its uses are still the same as outlined, which is the payroll, mortgage, interest, utilities, and it can be used to retire interest or for interest towards other existing debt. That part's not forgivable, but the usage is the same. So anything above any amount that is forgiven is a 1% loan.
Thank you.
You bet.
All right, I think we have time for maybe 2 more.
Yeah, I'm trying to find a new one here.
Let me try to go. I know that somebody has their hand up here. Tracy, go ahead. Go ahead, Tracy.
Sorry, I was talking, didn't realize it was muted. Thank you for letting me jump in. I've been working with several clients on the Navajo Reservation who have BIA guaranteed loans, and they're having a challenge getting in touch with their lenders, and just wondering if there's anything in this bill. I've reviewed it, Mr. Blaney's reviewed it, or anything in this next section, Tom, that you know about that would defer those BIA guaranteed loans through like Native American Bank. Does anybody have any information at all on those?
Don't know anything about that, Tracy. We'll have to defer that one too. Sorry.
Tracy, we'll see if we can look into it and get back to you. We'll take it off of this.
And Tracy, did you say that you got with Bob Blaney at the SBA?
Well, Mr. Blaney reviewed the CARES Act, the first round of the CARES Act, and there wasn't a mention of the BIA included. But I know that the second round is a little more expanded to include the needs on the Native American reservations. I've been in discussion with Karen Allen, who made a couple of contacts, but my client still has not been able to reach his lender on this question. So I was just hoping that anybody that's read through the entire document may have seen something pertaining to the BIA guarantees.
I'll take a look at that and get back with you.
Thank you, Bob.
And I see 2 quick questions we can answer. John asked about seasonal businesses. There are specific ways to calculate seasonal businesses. And you'll want to look at those or in the deck, as well as you can talk to your local SBDC or contact Robert. It is also concerning, though, if you're running your business in July and August, will it hit your 8 weeks for forgiveness? Another question came up from Hannah is, I want to include myself as an employee in the PPP. If you hit the $100,000 cap, that's okay. Your salary for you as an individual is $100,000. That's fine. That's the number you use for your application.
Great. Tom, I'm just referring to in the chat, ACOS COVID. You can have your team or your companies contact Kimber, her or Lisa at the Arizona Rural Development Council. Kimber, would you mind publishing that email or site they can contact you? Thank you.
Yeah, we'll do right now.
Appreciate it. All right, we're kind of running out of time here. Got about a couple more minutes. Let's see if we can get a couple more questions in. Thanks.
Sure. Mario asked about if I use EIDL for payroll, how does that count against PPP? So if you use EIDL, that amount's not forgiven, right? So you don't want to double dip. If you've exceeded your 8-week period on PPP, then you can start using your EIDL at that point for that. James has asked a question about a 12% increase for ISEP funds. Andy, no clue what that is, so I'll leave that with you. I think that's the last of the questions. Unless there's anything in chat.
Well, thank you so much, Tom. We'll continue this. Obviously, there's an enormous amount of questions, so we'll make sure that we continue that process. Again, tomorrow we're going to recap on the PPP and the EIDL applications. We'll have our experts on the line to take any Q&As. We're also going to go through alternative sources of quick cash. Kimber Lanning and her team are going to lead that with Local First Arizona. Again, we're very appreciative of all the work she is doing. Yes, go ahead.
I just mention that what we mean by that is we're going to be hosting ideas for small businesses to get payment upfront, sort of through gift cards, ideas about how they can start a subscription service or other things that help with the cash flow. So it's not at all about accessing capital via loans or anything like that. And
right.
Just to clarify.
Yep, just want to make sure we're clear on that point. We will, however, review quickly some of the PPP and probably have some follow-on questions from today too, I'm sure.
And Andy, we also have Ellen Curtin, who's leading our session on Wednesday. She's got her hand raised. I don't know if we had time to let her say a few words as well.
We sure do. Ellen, it's all yours. Go ahead. Thank you, Mark.
Hello, can you hear?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
I think the one big thing that's been eye-opening through this process is how important the relationship with your bank is. And my whole discussion will be around that in terms of now and going forward and why that's important. You know, it seems that a lot of businesses go to their banker when they have a need instead of establishing a relationship early.
Such a great point, Ellen. And that's valid on Wednesday. That's valid today. And it's going to be valid beyond the next several weeks. So we really want to encourage that process. So again, thank you for your support as well.
Absolutely.
Well, we're going to close it out today. Reminder again, tomorrow we'll kick off again at 9 a.m. Wednesday at 9 a.m. as well. And then on Thursday and Friday, we're going to have open Q&A. So get ready for your questions and we'll support those for Thursday and Friday. We'll also be publishing next week's content on Wednesday. So if you have some thoughts on that, please send us a note. It's something that's really important for us to have your feedback and your interests as we start to formulate the next several sessions. So thank you again. We'll leave this chat open for a little bit. You can put your comments and questions in. Any new topics that you'd like to see next week is great. And again, I want to thank Tom, Robert, our entire team as well. Kimber for your support, Ellen for yours as well. And we'll continue this on. And thank you, everyone. And let's keep working hard and we'll be here to support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.